Oh sorry, tatipnya tatip pemilihan, Ding. Komisi Keorganisasian, kemarin kita sudah selesai membicarakan AD-ART dan ada beberapa usulan draft perubahan pada ART, tidak pada AD yang kita butuh kesepakatan seluruh peserta. Lalu kemudian yang kedua nanti komisi 2 apa kemarin? Jurnal, oke, jurnal dan kerjasama itu juga kayaknya agak panjang tapi tidak sepanjang yang ketiga. Nanti terakhir kita bicarakan yang MBKM dan kemarin ada usulan dari Pak Andi Rahman untuk sekalipun tidak dibicarakan di komisi membawa ke rapat pleno usulan tentang LAM. Apakah kita masih akan memerlukan perbincangan itu atau tidak, dan syaratnya sih iya. Lalu apa yang bisa kita lakukan tentu dalam waktu dekat. Oke, monggo saya yang sudah siap yang mana? MBKM. Ketua sidang sudah ada di sini. Pak Zainal sama Pak Ali Imran. Pak Zainal sudah belum? Oh, Pak Islah. Pak Ali Imran ke atas. Oh, ngambil laptop. Oke. Ya. Atau ya sudah, Mas Yahya, ini di saya juga ada. Kita mulai dari komisi 1 aja kalau gitu. Oke. Oke. Ini bentar, yang dikirim Mbak Ulia ke saya tatipnya. Oke, draft. Boleh. Yang sudah dikasih catatan. Baik, Bapak Ibu, saya untuk yang pertama saya ingin tawarkan kepada panjenengan semua seperti yang saya sampaikan di depan, peserta rapat adalah semua anggota yang hadir. Jadi kita tidak perlu memilah dari prodi ataupun perorangan, kecuali nanti kalau kita mau masuk ke pemilihan pengurus baru kita tentukan tatip bahwa karena isunya tentang hak suara gitu ya. Hak suaranya hanya kita berikan kepada 2 suara untuk anggota prodi, 1 suara untuk anggota perorangan. Gitu. Saya mohon persetujuan panjenengan semua dulu. Jadi nggak perlu ini bukan anggota keluar. Lagian juga biasanya mah pakai gitu ya. Pakai nggak tahu pakai itu kalau bahasa Aceh apa ya, Prof Nurdin? Pakai bahasa Acehnya apa gitu? Saya nggak tahu. Oke, baik. Udah ya. Karena ketua sidang komisi 1 saya, jadi sekalian saja saya juga menyampaikan hasil komisi 1. Oke.
Assalamualaikum.
Oke. Oke, baik Bapak Ibu. Jadi asumsi saya sampaikan asumsi dasar kami. Udah gabung? Pak Walid. Oh, Pak Walid sudah gabung. Ya sudah, berarti kita langsung ke situ saja dulu. Oke. Oke, baik. Karena Pak Walid Saleh sudah gabung, berarti kita break. Jadi semua sidang komisi kita lakukan sesudah Pak Walid Saleh. Oke. Oke. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Walid Saleh.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam.
Belum muncul. Biar saya halo. Ini kudunya Mas Ilyas Daud, mana Mas Ilyas? Tidak muncul. Oh ya sudah saya. Okay. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Walid Saleh. Are you there?
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam.
So Okay, please let me invite Professor Yusuf Rahman to come to the stage with us as the discussion. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Walid Saleh.
Walaikum salam.
Okay, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay,
can you hear
thank
me?
Thank you so much. Okay, let me see from the schedule. Yeah, we will start in about 4 minutes at. So it's actually 9 o'clock here, and I suppose the same 9 o'clock over there.
That's right.
Okay, okay. While we are waiting for some people to join us on Zoom and on the spot. So here also
No
there
problem.
are around 50 people here in the room with us, and some other joining the conference through the Zoom meeting. Pak Sahiran mau saya hello dulu. Sini dulu, ngisi 4 menitnya, sini sebentar. Oke. Enggak, iya. And Professor Walid Saleh on the stage now. We have Sahiran Samsuddin with us and Professor Yusuf Rahman. Let's see. Before we start, maybe he would like to say hello to you.
Yeah,
Assalamu alaikum.
Professor.
Walaikum salam. Walaikum salam.
How are you, Professor?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah,
I'm
fine,
very
fine.
honored to be here.
Right. So thank you very much for your your coming presentation, and I love it. We must love your new idea on periodization of tafsir. Yeah, we are very eager to hear you in this case. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Walid.
Thank you. I'm very honored to come, like to present for Indonesian scholars. I love Indonesia, and I'm very honored to be here.
Okay, thank you, thank you so much, Prof. Walid Saleh. So I'm Rafiq. I'm Ahmad Rafiq. I'll be I will chairing these sessions, and with us also Professor Yusuf Rahman is next to me. Will be the discussions of your speech, and we have around an hour. We will give you around 30 to 45 minutes to talk, and then we will give the rest of the time to Professor Yusuf Rahman. If we still have some time, might be we will open the possibility of question and answer from the audience to you. If not, we will stop at around 10 o'clock. Okay. So I suppose that's the time for us to start the sessions. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, Sayyidina Muhammad ibn Abdullah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawalah wa ba'd. Honorable speakers, Professor Walid Saleh and Professor Yusuf Rahman, and all the participants of the conference, both who are joining the conference in Gorontalo, or some of you who are joining the program through Zoom meeting. For these sessions, we will have the third keynote speech. Yesterday, we have one from Professor Quraisy Shihab and Professor Yudian Wahyudi. And the second, we have Professor Karen Bauer with the discussion with Professor Sahiran. And this morning, we are honored to have Professor Walid Saleh with us, who will talk about the periodizations of the Sunni Tafsir or the Sunni commentary. This actually the issues that Professor Walid Saleh discussed in some of his works, in article and in the book, and some of us might be familiar, and but I'm sure that the issues of like kind of the tafsir tradition that Professor Walid Saleh is a bit striking to us to know about the beginning of the tafsir traditions and the development of tafsir tradition later on from that beginning. So I will not want to be the first speaker. So then I'll give the time to Professor Walid Saleh to have his speech, and for 30 to 45 minutes. and then we will have Professor Yusuf Rahman as the discussions. Time is yours, Professor, please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for this invitation. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm really I have a very big love for Indonesia and its people, and I'm deeply honored to be here, to be given this opportunity to speak with you. Now, my speech today is really the result of a long engagement with tafsir, and it's an attempt to give like a historical outline of its development. So from the very beginning to the modern period. And I call this problem the periodization problem, meaning, can we offer a periodization of tafsir that allows us to, in a sense, chart the history of tafsir in a better way, so that when we speak about tafsir, we know which period we are talking about. So that's really my aim. My aim is to, in a sense, give major historical periods so that we understand when a work in tafsir is coming from which period and what's the characteristics of that period. Now, I want to start by saying that this is mainly for Arabic works. So this is really a periodization of Sunni Arabic works. It does not concern itself with other works in national languages or in other Muslim sects. So that's have to be kept in mind, and especially it does not deal with like the major Muslim languages, so Persian or Ottoman or Urdu or Malay. So it doesn't really deal with the major Muslim languages. So with that in mind, I really want you to keep that in mind, that like this is a periodization of Arabic Sunni tafsir. Okay, so what's the problem? We have a problem in the field is that we don't have so far clear periods of tafsir. So for example, if you go to the Encyclopedia of Islam or Encyclopedia of the Quran, what you have there is what I call generic, I'm gonna type generic divisions. So they give you, for example, tafsir lughawi, or like linguistic tafsir, grammatical tafsir, theological tafsir, sectarian tafsir, or mystical tafsir. So this is a generic understanding of the tradition. It's not historical. It's not historical, right? So, and then finally it gives you modern tafsir. So, and it gives you Shia tafsir as, so including in the generic tafsir, it gives you sectarian tafsir. So Shia tafsir or Ibadi tafsir, or, but it doesn't give you a line of like what is going on historically. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, the second thing, if you go to the Encyclopedia of the Quran also, the same things. There's an attempt to give you like a division, but it's not clear. For example, in this Encyclopedia of the Quran, Professor Andrew Rippin gives modern, classical, mature, and early, classical, mature, and modern. But that's really doesn't help. Like, for example, what's the difference between classical and mature? All right. But also the mature, how long is the mature? When does it end? Right? So that it doesn't really help you much. So this is in the Western Academy. In the Arab world, we have real attempts at giving like divisions, and we have three major scholars who gave divisions. So, for example, we have الذهبي التفسير والمفسرون. So الذهبي. right? We have Al-Fadil ibn Ashur, هذه التفسير ورجاله. And then we have Ibrahim Rufaida.
Professor Walid Saleh, sorry to interrupt you. You'd like to present
Yes.
PowerPoint, or it's okay for you just using the chat room? No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. I'm actually using the chat room. Is that okay?
Okay, no problem. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, please.
Yeah. And then we have and then Ibrahim Rufaida, and he's written التفسير والنحو. So these three books have given histories of tafsir in the Arab world. Now, Al-Dhahabi is somebody who had given, it's three periods: the Prophet and the Sahaba, the Tabi'un, and then what he calls Asr al-Tadween, basically the everything else. So that's not very helpful. Al-Fadil ibn Ashur gives a different history. He puts Al-Baydawi as the center of tafsir. And then Ibrahim Rufaida gives a different story. He puts Abu Hayyan al-Ghurnati, Tafsir al-Bahr al-Muhit, as the center for his tafsir. So we have like, in a sense, so we have Al-Baydawi as the center of tafsir according to Al-Fadil ibn Ashur, and we have Abu Hayyan al-Ghurnati. Abu Hayyan al-Ghurnati, al-Bahr al-Muhit. Sorry, al-Bahr al-Muhit. So in the Arab world, we have at least two major histories of tafsir. One by Al-Fadil ibn Ashur, in which he says that Al-Baydawi is the most important work and it was the climax of the tradition. The other one, Ibrahim Rufaida, he says Abu Hayyan al-Ghurnati, al-Bahr al-Muhit, is the most important work of tafsir. Now, these are in the Arab world, Al-Fadil ibn Ashur and Rufaida are the best histories we have. And I actually think they're not bad. They're good. They're good understanding of the development of tafsir. Now, but what I'm saying is all the histories of tafsir till this moment neglects one major fundamental aspect of tafsir, which is al-hashiyah. So far, all the histories of tafsir do not understand that in the Islamic world, after the 12th century, the hashiyah became the most important form of tafsir. And that's why I'm trying to present a new division of the history. So this is really what I'm trying to say. The history of tafsir so far is a history of individuals and mufassirun. So to give you an example, if you read any history of tafsir, you have At-Tabari, Al-Zamakhshari, Ibn Atiyah, right? You have names, and then Al-Razi, what's his name? The one who Ma'alim al-Tanzil of Al-Baghawi, right? You have names, and then you have Baydawi, right? Abu Su'ud, and then you end up with modern period, right? So this is not history. This is names. You're giving me names and books. You're not giving me a narrative of the tradition. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is this is not a complete reflection of what Muslims did during the last 1400 years. Okay, so it neglects to mention the form of Hashia. Right, so that's really, so this is the situation. Now, what I'm trying to say is that there are two Hashia periods in Islamic history that has not been understood. And we have two books that became subject to Hashia. We have Az-Zamakhshari, Al-Kashaf, and then we have Al-Baydawi, Anwar al-Tanzil, right? I think that's the name, Anwar al-Tanzil. Okay. Now, these two books became the basis for teaching tafsir and the fundamental books in tafsir. And unless we see that, we will not understand. Now, by the way, it's not Ibn Kathir. So Ibn Kathir is not in the picture till modern period. So like, meaning only if we do this periodization can we understand the Islamic history of tafsir properly. Okay, so how do I deal with the problem? I've proposed like 8 periods. I've proposed 8 periods. Let me. So I'm offering a new periodization of tafsir. Yeah, let me like new periodization. Let me write that down. So this new periodization is historical, meaning it follows the trajectory of history from the beginning to the modern times. Okay, and I'm proposing 8 periods, at least 8 periods. Okay, so I'm proposing 8 periods. And this 8 periods starts from the beginning to the modern period. Okay, so let's start with the first period, and I called it Origins. The first period, Origins. Now this is the very beginning of tafsir, and I'm saying 2 things. That in this period we have 2 major things that happen. We have Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, and Sibawayh. Now, why Sibawayh? Because although Sibawayh wrote in grammar, I'm saying that because grammar was invented, tafsir will change. After Sibawayh, there will be like the birth of grammatical tafsir. So now Muslims can no more explain the Quran unless they know grammar. So that becomes the issue. So this period basically is the beginning of tafsir, but also the birth of grammar in tafsir. Okay, so that's the first period. Now the second period The second period, I called it early classical. And this is from Muqatil, basically from Muqatil to Maturidi. So from after Muqatil to Maturidi is the first classical period or early classical period. In this period, we have the maturation of grammar, the maturation of theology, we have Tabari. So we have, like, in a sense, what we consider the first major works in tafsir. Now, in this period, we have كتب المجاز, كتب المعاني, we have كتب التفسير الكبيرة مثل like Tabari and Maturidi, right? So this is the early classical period. And then we have the third period. Third period is the classical period. And this starts with Tha'labi and ends with Zamah Shari. Okay, so this is the real classical period, is when we have like the maturation of the tradition. So we have Tha'labi, we have Wahidi, we have Baghawi, we have like all the Asfahani, all this, everybody who's working in tafsir after Tabari, right? So that's the real classical period. Okay, now this period will become fundamental for other periods. So it's in this classical period where all the tradition is gathered. And why, like the third classical period makes the past forget the past. So in a sense, people stop reading Tabari, they read Tha'labi. They stop reading Zajjaj, they read Al-Wahidi. So it's this classical period becomes like really one of the first foundations of the tradition in which you don't go past it. Like you don't go and read Muqatil, you read about Muqatil through Tha'labi. And you don't read Tabari, you read Al-Wahidi from this period. Okay, so this is the third period. Now, and the fourth period is the rhetorical period. And this is really starts with the Makhshari. And here we have a revolution in the Islamic world, which is Bayan. Ilm al-Bayan becomes fundamental. So it's not Ilm al-Nahu. So up to the classical period, it was Ilm al-Nahu. And now with Jurjani, we have al-Balagha wal-Bayan, and then al-Balagha wal-Bayan becomes the mode to explain the Quran. And this is the rhetorical period, meaning the Fatra al-Bayaniya or al-Balaghiya, right? And this is the, like, you know, the first, in a sense, mature post-classical period. We have Ilm al-Bayan as the basis of interpretation. Okay, now, so the Makhshari writes the tafsir, and suddenly everybody stops reading everything, and it's the Makhshari everywhere. And what happens now is that there is madrasas. All over the Islamic world, there are madrasas, and there are professors who are teaching tafsir. And what do they use to teach tafsir? The Makhshari. So we start having Hashia or Hawashi on the Makhshari. So the fifth period is what I call the first Hashia. yeah, period. Basically, Hawashi on Al-Kashaf. So this is really the first universal tafsir. The first universal tafsir in Islam is Az-Zamakhshari, Al-Kashaf. So everywhere Muslims are reading Al-Kashaf, from Cairo down to India. Everybody is reading Al-Kashaf, but also everybody is writing Hawashi on Al-Kashaf. Okay? Now, there is a problem with Al-Kashaf. Al-Kashaf is a Mu'tazili tafsir. And it was the Sunnis who were using the Kashaf, the Sunnis who were writing Hawashi. There were many scholars who were unhappy with Al-Kashaf. The problem is, what do you use in its stead? Right? So everybody is using Al-Kashaf. What do you use in its stead? So Muslim Mufassirun started saying, okay, I'm gonna write one. So we have anti-Zamakhshari or anti-Hashia period. And this is the period, this is the sixth period. The sixth period is a period of an attempt to replace the Makhshari. So you have Al-Khazin, you have Al-Baydawi, you have Abu Hayyan Al-Gharnati, you have Al-Asbahani, you have many people trying to write a Quran commentary that is Sunni, Ash'ari, and Balaghi, like Zamakhshari. So there is an attempt to come up with a replacement of Zamakhshari. Now, it's in this period that we have also the Baydawi comes into being. Now, the Baydawi does not become prevalent, but 200 years after the death of Baydawi. Excuse me. So 200 years after Baydawi dies, his Quran commentary becomes the textbook. And that's the seventh period. Is the Baydawi period, or the second Hashia period. And this is what happens. Basically, Zamakhshari is taken out of circulation, and all the professors in the madrasa start using Baydawi. Not only they use Baydawi, but they start writing Hawashi on the Baydawi. So this is from the 16th century, from As-Suyuti till the 19th century. Okay, so by the 19th century, there is a whole revolution that happens, the modernity, and that's the modern period. So the eighth period, or the seventh period, and the eighth, right? Modern tafsir. Okay, now, what I want to say now is modern tafsir should be a whole different thing. Modern tafsir should not be part of like how we study classical tafsir or pre-modern tafsir. Why? Because of national languages. Meaning, by modern tafsir, tafsir stops being Arabic. It becomes in national languages. So you have Persian tafsir, Turkish tafsirs, Malay tafsirs, Indonesian tafsirs. So you have, you really, in the modern period, you cannot anymore treat it like as if through Arabic. It's a whole different thing. So the 8th period is also a new period. It's a new thing. It's a radically new thing. And I myself don't think that this is like we can in a sense, I don't think we can include that in the history of tafsir because it has to be treated differently. So what I'm saying is, in the modern period, tafsir becomes too complicated to put it as if it's in the classical period. It has to be studied differently, and it has to take in consideration local histories, meaning you cannot speak of modern tafsir without speaking of what are you talking about? Are you talking about Egypt or Morocco or Turkey or Kazakhstan, or is it Iran or Pakistan or Malay or Indonesia? You have to, in a sense, you have to bring the national history into the period. Okay, now let me add 2 remarks. Tafsir now cannot be studied without access to the archive, meaning we cannot depend only on printed material. We have to use the history of tafsir even in manuscripts. Okay, so there is so we need to use the manuscripts also. We cannot depend on printed works only. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is that this periodization is not perfect, meaning this is an attempt to, in a sense, give a historical narrative, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it covers everything. But I think it's a better way of doing tafsir than before. And I think I'm going to stop now to open the floor for discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Walid Saleh. So it is very clear. So the first critique is about the history that we are understands about that usually we talk in especially in Indonesia, in the Department of Quranic Studies. When we talk about the periodization of tafsir, usually we refer to the madhahibut tafsir, such as Az-Zahabi, but it's very clear from Professor Walid Saleh that's not historical. It's actually about the book and the authors. It's not about the historical development. So Professor Walid Saleh has already show us about at least in his thesis about the 8 periodizations. So now let me invite Professor Yusuf Rahman to give some discussions and issues regarding to the presentation of Professor Walid Saleh. Time is yours, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Rafiq. And for sure, thank you very much, Professor Walid Saleh, for your presentation. I think this finding will inform us, will enlighten us, and will revise the history of tafsir that so far we have understood. Yeah. Because you also mentioned about the importance of Hashiyah in the criteria for dating and for periodization of the tafsir. In your presentation, you mentioned about how the periodization of the tafsir in the Western world and also in the Arabic world, yeah. And in Indonesia, we have also some scholars who have tried to make periodization of the tafsir. Although, as you mentioned, maybe the criteria is not so clear, only mentioned about the individuals and the tafsir. For example, just to mention a few, we have Ustad Ahsin Saho, yeah, who gave 4 periods of tafsir. The first one is the formative period. The second one is the golden period. You mentioned about the maturity period. And the third one is the stagnant period. And the fourth one is the awakening period. What interests me is that other scholar mentioned Al-Baidawi as the center of the tafsir, yeah, in your presentation. But in the periodization of Pak Ahsin Saho, the period of Al-Baidawi is considered as the stagnant period. Maybe because he think that the Hashiyah is the reason of the stagnant period. So during that time, scholar do not write tafsir, but they annotate the tafsir. So they consider it as the stagnant period. The second scholar, Indonesian scholar, who tried to give periodization of the tafsir is Professor Abdul Mustaqim, who is also our scholar here who attended this conference. He make periodization based on the perspective of history of ideas. Yeah. So he classify into only 3 periods. The first one is the formative period, where the tafsir mostly descriptive. The second period is the affirmative period, where the tafsir usually very ideological, political, ideological. And the third period is the reformative period with critical analysis. So this some of periodization which has been presented by some Indonesian scholars. But your periodization, I think, is very detailed, yeah, by considering the manuscript and also printed, and also the Hashiyah. I read one of your article in 2006 on the last of Nishapur School of Tafsir, Al-Wahidi and his significance in the history of Quranic exegesis. This is one of the article and many of your article where you try to trace the history of Quranic exegesis. And in one of your statement, you said a major problem facing any scholar studying the history of tafsir is that many commentaries are still unedited. In your last presentation, you give one remark that if we want to study the history of tafsir, we have also to consider the manuscript in addition to the printed one. So does it mean that because we still have manuscript is not edited. Maybe the manuscript which we have not find it yet. Yeah. Do you think that this AIAT periodization will change with the publication or with the finding of the new manuscript?
Yeah.
Maybe in addition to Hashiah, there is another criteria for this periodization. And the second one, in your presentation, it seems that you do not mention the date. Yeah, the criteria of this periodization is based on the books or based also based on the date. When you mention about the early period with the classical period and others, I only hear when you mention the date is during the Baidowi and others.
No, actually, in the article, in the big article, there are dates.
Okay.
So each period ends with the one that starts the next period. So, for example,
chronological. Okay.
Yeah. So like, for example, the first phase ends with Muqatil, and the second one ends with Maturidi. So that these are dates. Then it starts with Ta'labi and ends with Zamakhshari. The one with Zamakhshari like ends with like the big Abu Hayyan. You see, we have Abu Hayyan, and then we have, and then there's a period of overlap between the Hawashi on Zamakhshari and the response to Zamakhshari, right? Now, Professor Rahman, I think you have pointed you have pointed the weaknesses in my periodization, and every periodization is problematic. Every periodization is problematic because we are trying to, in a sense, put a sense on history, and it's not always clear. It's not always clear what's going on. But what I'm saying is, this periodization reflects the literature much better.
Yes, that's right.
That's one thing. Now, the second point about new books and new manuscripts coming up, I think you have a very good point. You have a very good point. Now, but luckily we do have there is a manuscript catalog. I'm gonna write it down here. الفهرس الشامل للتراث العربي المخطوط، علوم القرآن. This is the title. مخطوطات التفسير. Now this catalog came out in '86, I think, from مؤسسة آل البيت in Jordan. When it first came out, it came out in 12 volumes. So it came out in 12 volumes. And then when it was reissued, they issued it in 2 big volumes. Two volumes. Now, this catalog has almost all the titles of tafsir that ever written by Muslims. Almost, and it's all the manuscripts. So if there is a history to be written, it has to be based on this catalog. And I think I paid attention to the catalog.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Walid Saleh. The last comment that I would like to mention about the importance, the role of Az-Zamakhshari and also Al-Baydawi. Az-Zamakhshari as Mu'tazilite, but his tafsir become the center. They read Az-Zamakhshari and they refer to Az-Zamakhshari, but since they know that Az-Zamakhshari is a Mu'tazilite, so they write a Hashiyah anti-Mu'tazilite, and then finally become the center for Al-Baydawi. I know that there is a book or research on Az-Zamakhshari, whether he is Mu'tazilite or others. Do you think, based on the manuscript by Az-Zamakhshari and the printed one, is there any difference? Because some people said that the editor of Tafsir al-Kashaf has erased some of Mu'tazilite doctrine in Tafsir al-Kashaf. For example,
well, let me get a copy of the new edition and come back to you.
Oh, oh my God.
So recently, a new edition of Az-Zamakhshari came out. And this is from Turkey.
Okay.
Now, it just came out in 10 volumes, so I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay.
But we now have a critical edition of Az-Zamakhshari.
Oh, good.
Right? Look, it's just, but I just got it in the last month. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay, that's good. That's good information. Because some, as I mentioned, some said that the editor has revised. For example, in the Muqaddimah of his tafsir, usually when we read the Mu'tazilite tafsir, they will say, Alhamdulillahilladzi khalaqal Qur'an. But the present tafsir that we have, it doesn't mention about khalaqal Qur'an, but we read Alhamdulillahilladzi anzal al-Qur'an. So there is no any Mu'tazilite in this statement. I wonder in your in the new publication there is another statement.
I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay.
So just got it. Like what's happening, Professor Rahman, now is there's a lot of new editions coming out in the Islamic world. So there is a new, like almost a revolution in edition. There's so many new editions coming out, and actually, like even like someone like me, specialist, I can't keep up with it. There's so many coming out.
That's right. That's right. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Walid Saleh. I'm sure we are waiting for the publication of this article so we can.
Thank you.
Benefit.
And I'm very honored. I'm very honored to be here in Indonesia. I'm very honored.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Yusuf Rahman. And Professor Walid Saleh, we still have around 15 minutes, and I suppose I'll give the floor. Okay, I'll give the floor to raise the question. So we have one here, Professor Lili Umi Kalsum, and one online, and Muammar. So okay, let's start for the one here, Prof. Lili Umi Kalsum. Okay, please. Okay, you should go. Okay. Yeah, then Professor Walid can see you on the camera, so you have to go forward. Okay, di sini aja, di sini.
Yeah.
Di sini ngadep ke sana.
Indonesia language.
Okay, yes, you can say it in Indonesia, no
Okay.
problem.
Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih pemaparannya. Ada sedikit banding atau referensi lain yang menjelaskan terkait tentang periodisasi tafsir. Ada karya Ta'rifud Darisin, ya orang baru, mungkin beliau juga masih ada ya, Abdul Fattah Al-Khalidi, yang membagi periode tafsir menjadi 4, yaitu At-Ta'sis, At-Ta'sil, Ta'swil, dan Tafri' dan Tajdid. Ta'sis itu masa Nabi sampai tabi'in ya, yaitu birriwayah wal bayan, fokus di situ. Kemudian Ta'sil yang ini hanya melahirkan satu tokoh, yaitu At-Tabari. Nah, tafsir semuanya kemudian mengkiblat ke At-Tabari. Kemudian majulah kemudian abad ke-3 mungkin ya, itu bukan yang keempat ya, adalah Tafri'. Nah, setelah lahir At-Tabari, Jami'ul Bayan di sini, kemudian lahirlah banyak tafsir sehingga abadnya dikatakan Tafri'. Kemudian masuk di sinilah kemudian banyak sekali muncul tafsir bermacam-macam ya dengan berbagai kecenderungan. Maka muncul periode berikutnya namanya At-Tajdid. At-Tajdid ini tokoh utamanya adalah Abduh. Nah, Abduh dikenal sebagai pembaharu pemikiran Islam termasuk juga tafsir. Salah satu yang dia katakan adalah tafsir kok begitu-begitu aja gitu ya. Tafsir sehingga itu dibilang stagnan dan lain sebagainya. Pada akhirnya kemudian pola pemikiran si Abduh ini menjadi cikal bakalnya lahirnya metode Maudhu'i. Nah, yang saya tanyakan ketika Prof. Walid mengatakan bahwasanya no pengulangan, bukan stagnan, bukan pengulangan, dan itu merupakan wajar-wajar saja sebuah penulisan ada mengiblat pada sebelumnya. Bagaimana pendapat Prof. Walid terkait dengan penilaiannya Abduh tadi? Apakah memang Prof. Walid ini menolak atau tidak setuju dengan perkataan Abduh yang mengatakan stagnan? Apakah perkataan atau penilaian Abduh itu salah 100% ya? Ataukah sebenarnya sebelum Pak Walid ini mengeluarkan statement bahwasanya tidak ada itu bukan stagnan, itu bukan pengulangan, itulah tradisi penulisan tafsir dan lain sebagainya, pasti apakah Prof. Walid juga menemukan sebenarnya sih ada pengulangan gitu? Sebenarnya ada pengulangan. Lah yang saya tarik adalah yang saya tanyakan di balik penelitiannya Pak Prof ini. Pengulangan apa yang didapat? Saya kira pasti ada pengulangannya. Yang dibilang Pak Walid merupakan tradisi penulisan tafsir, pasti ada pengulangannya. Saya tanya begini, apakah apa yang ditemukan Bapak sehingga itu masuk di ucapannya Abduh tadi?
Okay. Baik, terima kasih. Do you understand, Professor Walid, or should I translate it into English? Okay. We have one question that's also online from Muammar. Let me say it in short. That's Professor Lili Umi Kalsum said there is a new book in Arabic, Ta'rifud Darisin by Abdul Fattah Al-Khalidi. Then he said about he make a periodization of tafsir into 4 periods. The first is Ta'sis, that's a riwayah and wal bayan, and Ta'sil, that's start from Tabari, that's only Tabari, and Tafri', that's after Tabari, and the last one is Tajdid, it's from Abduh. And the point of her question is what is the argument of putting Abduh as the Tajdid is based on the Abduh statement that the tafsir before him is actually just a kind of the repetitions. So it's a kind of the stagnant. So then Abduh introduced his tafsir to coin the new era of the period of tafsir. So it's same for her that it's a kind of contradict to your pronunciation to reject the idea of the period of stagnant, even though that's a kind of the repetition. So what do you mean about the what do you think that's about that's the statement of Abdul to introduce the new period, the tajdid period, please?
So I really don't believe there was a stagnation period. That's like really so this notion of stagnation is not something that helps historically, right? It doesn't help. But let me say this: any periodization is good. I'm not saying that, but the problem with like, you know, this like four periods of periodization is that it becomes too vague. It doesn't give you reflect the genres, what's going on. I mean, but also it presumes that tafsir, there was nothing new in tafsir after Tabari, like this tafriya business, and like there's a sense of like, you know, a buy into like, you know, that there was jumud, or like, you know, but I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Now, that being said, like the moment we start talking about periods in tafsir, that's good. Why? Because it will force us to look deeper into every historical period. That's what's good. Meaning, every field that has periodization means that there are people working on it.
Okay.
Let's hear Muammar. Hello, Muammar.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, please,
Hello,
Muammar, can you, yes, please.
Okay, good morning, Professor Walid. It's my pleasure to join virtually again. A wonderful talk. After the last time
Are you in Indonesia now?
Yeah, I am already in UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I have two questions, Professor Walid. The first is about the logic behind your 8 periodization, which is, in my opinion, very much in depth with emphasizing the role of grammar, the Hasyiah tradition, and the tafsir book of Zamakhshari and Baydawi, 2 of the most prominent mufassir with the most number of Hasyiah. My question is if we look at Al-Fihris al-Shamil al-Turasil Arabi al-Makhtut, as you already show us, we will find other Hasyiah devoted for other mufassirs besides the Zamakhshari and Baydawi. So how we should put this Hasyiah in your periodization?
Well, yes, that's a very good question. Now, so there is the Hawashi on Jalalain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawashi on Jalalain, it doesn't change the picture, right? I'm aware of that. It doesn't change the picture. The Hawashi on Jalalain falls under Baydawi period. Like, because it's, you know, Suyuti starts the Baydawi Hawashi, and with Suyuti writes the Jalalain, and that's where really you have that. But I don't think there is enough material on Jalalain to change the picture. Now,
Okay.
that being said, somebody can come and say, no, am I wrong? And we need to put Jalalain as a period. So like, you know, but at least now you see, Muammar, now we, like the moment you have, like, you have a more detailed outline, it becomes easier to fill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, in a sense, even though my outline could be, in a sense, not complete, but it's better than what we have before.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I want to say, Muammar, I want to say 2 things. Any history of tafsir that does not put Zamakhshari and Baydawi as central, in my opinion, is not good history. And notice that I didn't mention Ibn Kathir, right?
Yeah.
There's no Ibn Kathir. Now, Ibn Kathir becomes important in the modern period. Right? So then, to me, Ibn Kathir is a modern Mufassir. And that's really how, like, so the modern period is much more complicated, and that's why the modern period has to be treated differently. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Secondly, Professor Walid, it may be a bit out of the context of your presentation, but I really need your insight on what I'm now working. So I'm now working on Tafsir Ayat al-Ahkam of a modern Indonesian figure, Abul Fadl Senori. He died in 1991, very late. We found that it was very in-depth by the Anwar. So not only that Baydawi's name appeared much more times in compared to other tafsir, but his argument was regarded central to the rest flow of argumentation that Senori provided. So I personally believe that through this simple tafsir of Senori, we could find the footstep of Baydawi in the Malay-Indonesian commentaries, even in the late 20th century. But I have problems in calling this tafsir as the Hashya on Baydawi. Firstly, because the author himself doesn't call his tafsir as a Hashya on Baydawi. And secondly, because I could not trace the network through which the author studied Baydawi. So my question would be, what makes a work a Hashya of other works? So what is the nature of a work to be called a Hashya of another work?
Hashya, okay. Well, now, to me, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Ma'alim al-Tanzil of Baghawi is based on Al-Kashaf. But we don't call it Hashia, but it's really a reworking of Kashaf. Now, if your Indonesian scholar reworked Baydawi, then it's part of the school of Baydawi. It's it's a Baydawi school, I would say. Yeah, but it doesn't. Now, Hashia is a very specific kind of writing. The Hashia is you take the matan, right? And then you وقوله, and then you say وقوله, and then you say something. Now that's the Hashia is a very specific form of writing, right? Now, but that doesn't mean that's the only way of doing, commenting on a tafsir. So, for example, so there is lines of influence, and if your author uses Baydawi, then it's part of Baydawi tradition.
Part of Baydawi's tradition.
And actually, by the way, Muammar, I always suspected that Baydawi is more influential in the Malay world than people think.
But the Tarjumanul Mustafid was proven to be not Baydawi thing by Peter Reader.
Yeah, I think we have to revisit the whole story. I have a hunch that Baydawi was more influential than people think, but I don't know. We don't know anything about Baydawi in India, right?
Right.
But that's a different story. Now, unfortunately, I don't know anything about the Indonesian tafsir, so I can't say.
One more quick question, Professor Walid. So if we look at the Fihris Shamil, we find like 333. So my question is, the name that are put in this catalog, are they really given by the author himself or by the cataloger?
Okay.
Yeah.
So even there, the Al-Fihris al-Shamil is a good, it's the best historical narrative of tafsir we have. Now, it doesn't mean it's complete, but it's the best. It's the best. So like, as Professor Rahman said, we don't know what the future will bring. We don't know what the future will bring. So for example, if you read the Muqaddimah of Tha'labi, he mentions a lot of tafsir that are lost. And he mentions, for example, a huge tafsir bigger than Tabari. Right? But we don't know where it is. Nobody has seen it, right? So there are many, many, many works that are lost in tafsir. And but we work with what we have till unless like when something new comes, then we change our narrative. But so far, I think yeah. Like I don't wanna give the idea that I'm like I think that I've solved the problem. But what I'm saying is this is it's a better chronology than what we have so far.
Up to this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Walid. Hope to see you in person when you come to Indonesia.
Inshallah, ya Rab, Allah karimni wa uji zur bala. Inshallah, I come and visit your country, biiznillah.
Okay, I mean, thank you so much, Muhammad, and thank you so much, Professor Walid Saleh. So please.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna say goodbye now, and thank you so much for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Walid Saleh. So we are coming to the end of the session. It's 10 o'clock. Exactly 10 o'clock.
Yes. Thank you.
1 minute past 10 o'clock. Okay. Again, okay. I don't want to.
Assalamu alaikum.
We can conclude by saying Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for everybody.
Okay. Bye now. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Oke, baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, matur nuwun, makasih Pak Prof Yusuf Rahman, terima kasih teman-teman yang join online, dan terima kasih kan ngasih kasih sisa kan ke sisa-sisa, terima kasih semuanya. Oke, baik, selesai sudah sesi conference, lalu izinkan saya dengan karena Pak Yai Sahiran lagi nutup apa? Secara formal bersama dengan kan posisinya masih sekretaris dan majelis penasehat, gitu kan? belum. Oke, izinkan saya secara resmi bersama dengan panjenengan semua menutup konferensi. Jadi ini bagian terakhir dari konferensi kita. Mudah-mudahan fruitful. Tadi mohon maaf saya sempat kirim artikel itu, tapi tadi diingatkan Pak Sahiran, it's not for circulation karena itu baru draft yang sedang beliau revisi untuk dipublikasikan segera. Jadi nanti kita akan dapat edisi full dari draft itu tuh kan, Bu Lili nganterin air sama Pak Dekan gitu. Oke, iya bener juga nih, di depan ini ada sini nggak ada gitu ya. Oke, baik. Ya, jadi konferensi kita sudah selesai. Mudah-mudahan kita bisa dapat banyak masukan. Makasih juga yang join online untuk konferensinya. Nanti kita akan ketemu lagi dalam konferensi selanjutnya tahun depan. Di mana tempatnya, bagaimana formatnya, tunggu saja edisi selanjutnya, gitu kan. Kalau kata para dekan akan bilang tunggu RKKL-nya. Kalau yang bukan dekan nggak bilang RKKL. Oke, baik. Terima kasih. Kita tutup seluruh rangkaian sesi konferensi dalam rangka annual meeting kelima Asosiasi Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir se-Indonesia tahun 2022 dengan sama-sama mengucap hamdalah. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Aplaus untuk kita semua yang di Zoom juga. Iya, tadi malam kalau bule malah begini ya Pak Yusuf ya. Tepuk tangan tuh begini mereka karena malas sekali. Oke, baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, sambil nunggu Pak Sahiron, Mbak Ulia, Mas Fadli, Mas Yahya bisa masuk ke dalam. Kita lanjutkan sidang-sidang komisi. Syukur-syukur kita bisa selesai sebelum zuhur. Kita punya 4 agenda. 4 agenda itu 2 agenda utama. Di agenda pertama kita sidang pleno untuk seluruh hasil komisi. Lalu kemudian 1, 2, 3. Lalu kemudian agenda kedua pertanggungjawaban dan LPJ dan pemilihan pengurus. Kalau bisa kita selesaikan sebelum pausnya pergi, kita nonton paus nanti gitu. Kalau enggak ya pausnya suruh ke sini gitu kan. Ikan paus maksudnya, ini agak sulit nyebutnya antara paus dan ikan paus gitu ya. Itu agak hati-hati. Monggo, saya ngundang Pak Sahiron untuk masuk lagi. Udah datang belum? Lalu Komisi 1 ada saya dan Mbak Ulia. Komisi 2 siapa kan? Baiklah. Pak Zainal sama Pak Mas Fadli. Pak Zainal sudah di TKP nggih? Mana Pak Zainal? Tanya Bu Salamah. Bu Salamah, Pak Zainal mana? Lalu kemudian komisi yang ketiga MBKM, Pak Islah dan Pak Ali Imran. Pak Islah di sini. Pak Islah. Oke, Pak Ali Imran. Kan loro-loro nerano sapa sing presentasikan gitu. Oke, baik. Anggota. Pak Sayuran mana Pak Sayuran? Tak mulai. Mbak Ulia banyak banget yang di bawah. Apa itu Mbak Ulia? Ini ngabehi Mbak Ulia ini. Ngabehi itu